Hello, today we are going to see how to point a domain to your hosting provider. As we all know, we will be registering a domain with any of the registrars like Big Rock or GoDaddy. So, each uh, registrars would be providing you almost similar options to manage your domains, like changing your contact details, name servers, and other general details. So the first thing is we need to change the name servers. So there are actually two ways of doing this particular process of pointing our domain to the hosting provider. Most of the time, domain registrars would be providing you the hosting solutions, but that would be little expensive. So there, that is where we try to get a hosting provider outside domain registrar. So in that case, this video would be helpful for everyone. So let's see. I assume that we have registered a domain. Now we want to point this hosting to another hosting provider of our choice. So first thing we get is whenever we go with a hosting provider, they will be providing us a information which is known as name server. So in this case, I got two name servers from my hosting providers. So first thing I want to do is I have to go and find the corresponding IP address of this host name. For that, I just need to ping that name server, and I got my IP address as 199.79.62.20. So just make a note of that. Now let's go to the hosting provider. So in my case, hosting provider is Big Rock. So I'll just cover how to do the same procedure in GoDaddy as well. So in Big Rock, I just went to my domain configuration control panel. I first thing I have to check is go to name server. So the name server configuration panel is open. It will be having Big Rock's on a name server details. So first way to point our domain to the hosting provider is remove the default and add the one which hosting providers has provided, just like this. And remove all the default entries, update it so that it points to our hosting provider. So the problem with, so this is pretty easy and straightforward. The main problem with this particular approach is when you do this, all your DNS management would be taken care by your new hosting provider, not the domain registrar. So ideally speaking, everything looks good and everything is fine, but just in case you plan to use Google or any other service providers for email for this domain, then what happens is um, mm, that there is more configurations required, such as MX records, TX records, and many other things. All those needs to be configured in your hosting provider control panel, which is perfectly fine. But what happens is domain registrars are more reliable than hosting providers. Most of the time, depending on the hosting charges, we may plan to switch around the hosting providers. At that point of time, you have to change all these mail configurations, and there would be a mail downtime with this approach. So ideally speaking, we should be managing the DNS within the within the domain provider, not the hosting provider, and this domain provider will be pointing your hosting IP address alone to hosting provider. Hope it is clear. So now let's see how we will do the second approach, which is recommended. In that case, as we got our IP address corresponding to the name server, copy that, and first thing is that set this back to default values which was there. In our case it is DNS1, DNS2, like this. Since I haven't made any changes, I am just not saving it, but in your case whenever you make any changes and it needs to be applied, you have to click on update. So I'll just go back and see once again whether it is right. So yeah, everything remains the default. So that means this domain will be managed, DNS will be managed by BigRock itself. Now what? How do we point this to our hosting provider? For that, in BigRock's case, you just need to scroll down and find out where is the DNS management. So here is the DNS management. It says it's a free service, so click on manage DNS. Now you reached manage DNS. Here what you need to do is you have to click on a record. Don't forget, it is a record. It shows a page like this. You need to click on add a record. It opens a page again like this. First thing is you have to copy the IP address corresponding to the name server they have provided. Now come here, paste this IP address in the IP location. Leave this blank. What does it mean? That technotree.com points to this IP. Add a record. Now again click on manage. Add one more record. We need two records to be added. One is with www and one is without www. So what does it mean? One keeping this blank and one adding these three W's and then the same IP address. So what does this mean is the first one, when you keep this blank, the naked technotree.com in our case, that domain will be pointing to this IP. In this case www.technotree.com will be pointing to the same IP. Add this record and you can see the entries in this particular window like this. It will be pointing like this. So tricky part is when you click on add record, first entry should be blank and second entry should be www. So that's it. Now if you have the hosting provider cPanel details, your site should be up and running in next 3 to 4 hours. So now let's quickly look. This is all about changing these entries. Now let's quickly look into GoDaddy, which is pretty common. Again in GoDaddy, I have gone to the control panel of this particular domain. Now you need to find out where is manage DNS. Like earlier, click on manage DNS. In this case I am using the second approach. First approach, now I will show you how to change it to GoDaddy's own name servers. Just click on change and select this custom to default so that these values will get changed and save it. And then as earlier, here it will give you an option to add a records and the procedure remains the same. Hope this video is helpful. Thank you for watching.